Welcome to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast, where we talk all things Panther City Lacrosse Club. Now here are your hosts, Nicholas and Andy.
Well, welcome to another episode of Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I'm Nicholas, joined by Andy.
Hello.
Andy, there's a saying that says it's been a hot minute since the last time we talked, and in our cases, it has been a very hot minute since the last time we talked. Not only just, time-wise, but we've been dealing with some 100-degree weather down here in Texas.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I remember it only hit, 99 or 98, maybe the weekend before last, and we were like, hey, a little reprieve. It feels, quote-unquote, nice out today.
Right. It doesn't get as hot in the morning, but by mid-afternoon, it's still in that upper 90s. And I think even right now, it's 101 outside, so...
Oh, yeah, 104 is what my phone says. So it's
Texas in full summer mode right now. But after our last episode, we had the big news that came out kind of out of nowhere. The huge announcement of Cam Wingriniak and Patrick Dodds being traded to Saskatchewan. That was really big news, but things kind of slowed down for a little bit afterwards. But that doesn't mean things haven't happened, obviously. We've had some offseason signings and some, certain players coming back into the team. Not to mention, we also had some games, and we'll touch on that through the Panther City Juniors League. But I guess we'll kick things off with something a little different. This summer, something came up, something happened in the world of movies. People were putting movies together saying, hey, this is going to be the biggest weekend, which actually it did great for both movies when they came out. But there's a little thing called Barbenheimer. It was obviously everybody kind of got on to Barbie, the movie, and Oppenheimer coming out at the same time. So it was kind of this, everybody was getting on the hype train of you have to go see both of them, or at least one or the other when it comes out. I hate to admit, I was one of those people. I went and saw Oppenheimer and then had lunch and then went back to go see Barbie afterwards. What about for you? Did you get to experience Barbenheimer in any way?
I got to experience the Barben part of it, not the Heimer though. I don't know. I jokingly tell some of my buddies, I don't know if I have it in me to do a 3-hour heavy Christopher Nolan flick these days. But that being said, I hear it looks amazing in 70 millimeter. So if there are any of those theatrical showings floating around, maybe not during this original run, but maybe sometime in the future for a specialty screening, I'll probably see if I can check it out.
Well, and it's funny you talk about that because apparently there was one theater that was doing IMAX showings of that.
Yes.
And a guy got the very front row seat right in the center, and they found out who it was and gave him a whole, Oppenheimer package and stuff like that. So,
wow.
I guess watching the movie that close on that big of a screen does pay off. But hats off to the social media team for Panther City because they had a posting of themselves. They had more, everybody was doing Barbie-themed posts about, them or certain celebrities or stuff like that. And for Panther City, they picked top 3 Barbie-themed posters. One with Will Malcolm, which...
Of course.
I hate to admit that, but that's kind of perfect, especially with the whole Ken aspect of that. Pat Foley, which, he's a pretty good-looking guy. But the last one, again, the more you think about it, the more you're like, yeah, that fits. Phil Caputo with the mustache. Come on, man.
Man, I did of the 3. So, Will is Will. The people love him. As far as the other 2 go, Caputo, I love that jacket that he's got. That I guess it's like purple velvet, like Panther City purple velvet. Got a really cool design. Got a smiling mug. You can't go wrong. But my favorite of those posters had to have been Pat Foley because he was rocking the shades and had that nice jacket on and everything. Looked real sharp.
So yeah, that goes to our question. Which poster was Ken enough for you? And obviously, Pat Foley for you. I have to admit, Will Malcolm. Again, it just I think of the song "I'm Just Ken." Yeah, that's him. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah, sure there are a lot of fans out there that feel the same way.
Like I'm almost tempted to see if there's a way we can send them kin enough pullovers because that's what they should be wearing next season at some point. Either
Mhm.
that or it would be funny if they actually had like a Barbenheimer night at Panther City. That would
That'd
be
be
quite
interesting.
that would be a good theme night right there. But
You know what's interesting though? So allegedly before the end of this year, the next big double feature is gonna be the new Saw movie and the Paw Patrol movie, and so they're marketing it as Saw Patrol. So
what's
I don't know how many people are actually gonna do that, but I'd be interested to see if the Panther City social team does something with the Paw Patrol.
I hate to say this, but that's almost too opposite of the spectrum there. You have an extremely kids movie and then a movie that you would never take a kid to. Like I'm just thinking of a friend of ours, Chase. He has kids. They love Paw Patrol. I don't see him doing Paw Patrol and Saw in the same in the same day. But hey, I could be wrong. I don't know. I just feel like Barbenheimer was this perfect mix of a movie all the women were hyped for, and then a movie that, of course, all the guys could get hyped for, and it just kind of merging together into this big thing. I mean, so I saw Oppenheimer. I'll say this, quick 2-second movie review. It was a good movie. Was it Nolan's best? I don't think so. And I think a lot of people will tell me differently. They're like, "Oh no, this is one of his best." It could be, but I feel like he had other ones that were better. But for me, I'll say this about Barbie: I really enjoyed that movie a lot more than I thought I would.
Barbie was pretty fun. Yeah, yeah, it was fun to see that in theaters, and it definitely took some turns I didn't expect it to. It got pretty on the nose at certain points, but overall, really entertaining. And, like I said, I haven't seen Oppenheimer. I think part of that is I'm so spoiled from seeing Inception opening night at that IMAX theater
Oh,
you're talking about. And so, I think the last Nolan movie I saw was probably The Dark Knight Rises. Like I
oh,
never
okay,
made it to Interstellar because maybe at that time I was just like, oh, there's so many like space movies going on.
right. Well, I think
But
that came around like within a year of The Martian, and so I think a lot of people,
yeah, yeah,
that was a good
eh,
movie too.
yeah,
But
and then Gravity was out around that same time. I
mhm.
saw Moon a few years before that with Sam Rockwell. So I don't know. One day I'll see Oppenheimer. I'm sure we'll
And,
see.
and you didn't do a Dunkirk. I'll admit I never saw Dunkirk, so
No, yeah, like I said, it takes a lot for me to. It's not that I don't like historical movies, like with kind of like war themes and whatnot, but
mhm.
because I used to eat that stuff up when I was younger, but it just takes a lot out of me to see something that's over 2.5 hours
Right.
these days with pretty heavy subject matter. But
Well,
yeah,
and yeah, it's one of those things. Like if I was to watch it again, it's definitely going to be at home, and it's definitely going to be like, here's a break, 45 minutes in or an hour in or something like that, just to,
hmm
like give my brain a refresh. But again, as we all know, the Barbenheimer effect. Both those movies did really good in the box office that weekend. I think Barbie is still
hmm
in what, the top 5 or top 10 still grossing. So,
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah,
yeah, they're definitely having a good summer. That's not to say movies aren't dead. There's just I think people are getting a little bit more picky with what they want to watch in theaters and not
yeah.
watch.
I will say the new Ninja Turtles movie was a lot of fun as well.
See, they should have had a theme for that.
Yeah.
Hey, Panther City, if you want a theme for next year, maybe a Ninja Turtles night. There you go.
Turtles, Panthers, they'll figure something out.
Right. Just call them all mutants. It'll be good.
hmm
But well, I mean, yeah, of course, Barbenheimer, like I said, was an awesome thing that happened during the summer, and I'm glad we kind of got to experience that. But a little bit more serious note, there were some transactions that have happened over the past month, and it's good to touch on just to kind of see where Panther City is as a team. The first big one that came out, Colin Crawford. He accepts the franchise tag uh, to be with us for the 2023-2024 season. I mean, that's again, I think he did that knowing that he's going to be it's still close to home and all that.
Yeah,
But it's good to know
absolutely.
that he's going to be with us next year.
Yeah, yeah, he's a great veteran presence. Obviously, his statistics and impact on the game speak for themselves, whether it be numerically or by the eye test when you see what he's capable of doing out there. And I know that I feel like trading away Dodds and Greniak was kind of a push more of a win now push for the team because they know that Callum's kind of in the twilight of his career, yet he's still a very effective player. So to bring him on, and then also we'll go into it later, having some of the recent draft picks join the team that might have a bit more of a need a little bit more seasoning than someone like Doddsy might have needed at that point in his career. No, yeah, it just really shows that they're going to embrace what Callum's able to do for the team as they did last year after they made the trade for him.
Well, I think we talked about multiple times last year. I mean, he just brought kind of a good presence and a good pace to the offense last year. And especially towards the end of the year, it seems like he was kind of getting in a groove with everybody offensively,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of what you want to continue on into this next year. I mean, it's the classic case of, hey, this was working for us at the end of last year. Let's keep that going into this year.
Yeah, and it really is a perfect situation for him, like you said, in terms of him being based out of Oklahoma, which is almost a stone's throw away from us in DFW. So yeah, just seeing him accept that tag and play with us for at least another season's going to be
Right.
good.
Well, and speaking of other players that are, sticking with us, Ryan McLean, defensive mini. I mean, he's re-signed. I think it's good to keep certain players on the team. Cole Pickup, both of them, signed on and are staying with Panther City.
Yeah, yeah, Ryan. I know he was. It was kind of unfortunate that he suffered that. I think it was either his ACL or another ligament tear that inaugural season in Fort Worth. Because I think had he been in play, there's a chance that the team finishes at 500 or above and makes into the playoffs their first year. But thankfully, he was able to return last year. He showed some signs of, a little signs of rust and just trying to get back in the swing of things, but improved as the season came to a close. And so to have him there in his veteran leadership role while playing solid defense is great to have.
Well, yeah, and with Cole, I mean, I think, Cole pickup. He was only in, I think, one game last year, but
Mm-hmm.
it we need that depth and to have players, because as we saw last year, injuries happen or stuff happens, and you have to cycle out those players and have somebody to step up, and he definitely stepped up. So it's good to have that even that solid backup role,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
for the team.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some more playing time this year, well, with Dodds and Wengrenia being traded away, so the team can actually take a nice long look at what he can do.
Well, and so on top of that, obviously we have players coming back, but Panther City has been on the move, and it is very obvious what direction and what they're trying to aim for with these signings in the offseason. We signed defensiveman Brandon Goodman off of waivers from Vancouver. We also traded a 2025 draft pick to Albany for defensiveman Brett Mitchell. I think
Yes.
we also, yeah, we signed, or we got the trade. Yeah. Well, and those are two extra players coming in. It seems like Panther City again. They're aiming they have a very defensive mind when they're doing these transactions.
Yeah, I would say during the season last year was when they really kind of bolstered up their offense. Jake Fox had a nice cup of coffee with us, and
Hmm.
then Callum's here for at least a little bit of a longer run. So now that that's kind of settled in, they're seeing what that team is capable of. And it's like, okay, let's shore up the other side of the ball. We lost Liam Burns. I don't. I think was it to Albany? I don't quite remember, but yeah,
Yeah, I think
trade.
so.
Yeah, traded him away. That was obviously a big loss. So having to shore up his absence is definitely an offseason priority for the team.
Yeah, and again, it just kind of shows you, like you mentioned, I think they worked on their offense a lot in the second half of last season, but obviously the defense is what they need to work on. So what do they do in the offseason? They're focused on defense. And you talked earlier about it, but bringing in some new blood. We got Jackson Rose signed. He's a sixth round pick from 2022, and then also Jason Knox. He's finally joining us in Panther City.
Yeah, he kind of, I guess, went the Donville route of playing one extra year, trying to improve and bolster his game. And he actually coached the junior team when they were playing up in Ontario. So it was nice to see that. In the little social media video they had of him, he said he was ready to get to work and come down to Fort Worth, get ready to play. So always love to see that.
Yeah, and getting those again. We talked about the youth of this team. I mean, you're just adding that extra youth in here, coming in here, you know, and honestly, I think Knox is the kind of player who could make a difference right off the
Mm-hmm.
bat. And so we'll see how that goes. It just goes to show you that even in the off season where things might be slowing down now, I mean, there's constantly things going on, not even player related. We also saw general manager Bob Hamley. He signs a multi-year extension, just like Coach TK. I mean, sign an extension with the team. I mean, they're looking for the long road or the long haul in these transactions.
Yeah, and you love to see it not just for the team, but also for the city overall, because it's like, okay, the NLL and Panther City are making a commitment to build something big in Fort Worth
Mhm.
and to grow the game of box lacrosse just down in this region. We saw it just this past weekend and over the past few weeks, seeing everything that they're doing with the youth teams and the juniors. So it's just nice to see the growth of this down in the DFW region. And
Right.
yeah, makes you real curious as to see how big the sport can grow.
Right, and we've talked about that too. Just how much they are putting their best foot forward and helping grow the game in Texas. And again, we'll talk about the juniors here a little bit later, but just having that mentality of we want people to stay here long term. We want certain players, not players, but certain. I shouldn't say players because that's going to reference the actual players, but just key members that we want to stay here for multiple years to help this to continue to grow in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think both, the general manager, his return, and the coach's return, just like that with the extensions, just goes to show you, yeah, like you said, they're kind of all in right now.
Yeah, even speaking of the actual players, you mentioned that we signed Jackson Rose, who he's actually I think he grew up not too far from where I live down in the Austin area, and he
Okay.
was actually an All-American coming out of high school. Played in St. Bonaventure further up north, and then played one post grad year at Marquette. And so you think about these talented young box lacrosse players from across the country, and to have the opportunity as a Texas kid to somehow play for a Texas box lacrosse team has got to be really cool for him, and might attract more people from growing up in high schools down here to decide to pursue box lacrosse on a professional level and see if they can end up playing with teams that aren't all the way up north, kind of far from their home and where they're settled.
Well, I tell you what, that is a great segue into because we definitely want to talk about the Panther City Juniors. They had their training camp a couple weeks ago, but talking about just getting the chance to play and learn in Texas, and now hey, we might be seeing some of these juniors grow up, play, and who knows, they could be a future Panther City
Yeah.
player. But no, the Panther City Juniors, they started their training camp a few weeks back. And then they went up this last weekend. It was August, what was it, 19th, 18th, 19th, and 20th for the juniors tournament up in Canada. And Panther City, I thought, did pretty well. And again, they're juniors, so, but Friday, they had games on Friday and Saturday. And then obviously they had the playoffs on Sunday. I think it's always just a good experience for the youth to have this kind of experience because it sets them on a stage that they're not used to here in
Mm-hmm.
Texas. You know what I mean? Like down here, it's good to practice and good to learn and all that. But when you're there and you're going against other teams, that's a completely different atmosphere.
Yeah, and being able to train with the actual pro players and pro coaches as well has got to be a big confidence boost. And obviously, they can share their experience playing the game and telling them like, "Hey, I remember being your age and having to work on so and so, or and not get too down about losses, not get too high about wins." So yeah, just having that environment for them to learn the game is great.
Right. And we started off great. I mean, so our two main teams were under 15 and under 17. Friday was our first games. Under 15 went 2-1. They lost a close game to the Swarm 10-9. So really good showing on Friday. Under 17, they only had two games, but they won both of them. One against the Wings and one against the Roughnecks, which
Yeah, they exacted some revenge
I
for.
was about to say they got that was our junior revenge game against the Roughnecks. But yeah, I mean both of them did great on Friday. Saturday, unfortunately, things start kind of narrowing down. You're going against some tougher competition. Under 15, unfortunately, lost both of their games. Again, their second game they lost really close, 10-9 against the Seals. But under 17, again, went 2-0. And that was enough to get them into the playoffs on Sunday. And I think I texted you and I was like, I actually think they're like poised to get in there and get into the final. And so Sunday it was a double elimination style of you have multiple games, and if you lose twice, you're out pretty much. And their first game was against the Nighthawks. Not a really good showing. They lost 16-5, but they still had a chance, and they went against the Bandits. And again, just a really close game, but they ended up losing that 7-6. The Bandits, man, they're just having that in juniors and professional. They're having that kind of a year.
Right. Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's where their playoff run ended this year. But gosh, I couldn't even imagine just either being one of the kids or being even a parent and letting your kids experience this kind of, have this kind of experience, like you said, with the professionals teaching you, with Coach TK, they're teaching you. You had Nick Damu teaching the goalies certain
Yeah.
things and certain things to watch out for. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, it was kind of fun to see that some of the pictures or videos they posted of, Damien's always wearing his Bickle pads and everything. Now he's got like a few mini me's kind of
Uh-huh.
surrounded around him, taking in his sage wisdom and whatnot. So yeah, it was awesome to see. And obviously, the first playoff game against the Nighthawks for that under 17 team didn't go so well, but for them to bounce back and have such a close game against the Bandits
Mhm.
next was really impressive.
I would say if I was to suggest anything to the NLL, now they did stream on YouTube. They streamed the finals games from Sunday. Just stream the whole weekend. Like,
Yeah.
you can have they had commentary and everything on the finals, which was great. But even if you just stream the games on like Friday and Saturday, it'd be just to check in and see how they're doing. I mean, hey, people will watch. I mean,
I mean,
you're not gonna get tens and thousands of people, but there's enough people that want to watch.
yeah, I mean, you think about the Little League World Series and how
Hmm.
huge high school football is in the state of Texas. I was like, surely there's also market for these young box lacrosse teams out there as well.
Right. Well, I mean, again, it's awesome to see them continue to grow in the youth. Obviously, with Panther City, it was good to see them. Actually, quick shout out: the Desert Dogs had their first juniors team go. I think they unfortunately lost most of their matches, but again, it just shows that the interest in the U.S. it continues to grow, and it's great to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just regions that these non-traditional box lacrosse regions just being on the map and doing well for the community and for the kids that are interested in playing is really great.
Exactly, exactly. Well, speaking about just Texas and getting to grow the game and having people quote unquote come back to the region. We had a certain rookie of the year. Not so much, he's not playing the NLL right now. He's not playing box lacrosse, but a certain rookie of the year came back to Texas a few weekends ago, playing for the PLL. He was playing up in Frisco, Texas. Panther City obviously took advantage. They had some pregame stuff. You can meet up with them afterwards for some autographs and stuff like that. But man, Donville's returned to Texas.
Yeah, and he had himself a pretty good game. The Cannons, who he plays for in the PLL, beat the Redwoods 16-10, which, I haven't watched a lot of field lacrosse lately, but in my mind, that's more of a box lacrosse score.
Hmm.
But Donville did his thing. He plays a midi as opposed to I guess a forward position in box. So he's playing more kind of in the center of the field on both sides. And he ended up with 3 points. He had a trademark assist and also went 100% on both the goals he attempted. So great to see.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was interesting for him to be back in the DFW area in kind of a different context, but
Mm-hmm.
but no, his Cannons team I believe is still
They're
fighting
sec-
for playoff position, right?
yeah, they're tied for second, I think. So they're in a pretty good spot to certainly make the playoffs, and then who knows from there anything can happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, good luck to the Cannons. Good luck to Donville. Maybe he can make a splash in the PLL and win a few awards there while he's there.
Nice. Yeah.
But we can't wait for you to come back and get the season started here with Panther City.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the last things we wanted to touch on, we talked about a lot of signings, a lot of off-season stuff. One of the cool things about the off-season is you get to learn certain people or getting certain awards, um, uh, or in our case, we're getting people sent into the Hall of Fame. Um, Coach Toll and our scout John Grant Jr. both being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, really cool. Congratulations to both those guys. Coach Toll, people obviously know about him from coaching in the actual games. You always see his little board, his
Mhm.
his little checklist behind the players. And yeah, back in his day, he was a really good transition specialist. I mean, if you look at some of the numbers he put up, well, first off, he played for Toronto for a while, and then Rochester a good chunk of time after that, along with some other teams here and there. But he won 5 titles over his career and was part of a really successful Toronto Rock dynasty. And
Mhm.
just as their transition player, if you look at some of the numbers he put up, like total points coming out of that transition position, it is very remarkable. So very well deserved. John Grant Jr., I think his name is littered across the leadership boards as well in terms of he played 17 years, retired top 10 all time in goals, assists, and points, and also back at the start of his career was Rookie of the Year. So just real impressed for both those guys, and it's cool that they're both a part of Panther City.
For sure. And we talked about it during the playoffs. Unfortunately, with Coach TK out, Coach Toll had to kind of step up and be the coach for our team in the playoffs. And again, I think he did a really good job. But it's just good to see, all that hard work kind of pay off for both of them. So, congratulations to Coach Toll and John Grant Jr. I mean, deservingly so. Whenever you're a player or anybody gets into the Hall of Fame, you obviously know they're meant to be there. So congratulations to both of them. As the off season goes on, I mean, there continues to be more stuff that comes up. We're kind of aiming towards the draft, obviously here in a month or so. Actually, is it a month or 2 months? I think we're coming up on like a
Is
month
it
and a half.
September? Yeah.
It's in October, so we're getting close and close, and I know everybody's kind of getting that itch now. Like, hey, we're getting ready to get back into the groove of things and get ready for our season. I mean, is there anything in particular you're kind of looking forward to here in the coming months?
Honestly, just to see what what the more or less final roster is going to look like. Um, it's always fun to hear about what players worked on in the off season and whatnot. And just the community events, seeing what they can come up with. They did a lot of neat things last year, whether it be at the brewing company, some of the stuff with the barbecue company, Panther City. So yeah, just kind of getting back in the feel for things. I know we met those people that do tailgates before every game,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, the schedule wise, we weren't able to join them last season. But hopefully, we can make it out and yeah, have some fun chats and drinks next time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I'm kind of looking forward to, just to kind of get back into that atmosphere of going to games and meeting other people and just
Hmm.
kind of the whole Panther City experience. So, it does seem like it's just like with any sport. Once the draft happens, you just kind of get the feeling like, okay, now we're getting back into the groove of things, and it's going to be here before we know it. So the off
Hmm.
season is still in full swing as we count down to the regular season. We look forward to seeing what happens, and yeah, like you said, I look forward to seeing kind of how the team is going to shape up as it starts the beginning of the next year. Well, of course, we thank you all for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Of course, I am once again Nicholas.
And I'm off-season Andy.
Off season Andy. Thank you guys again, and we'll see you next time.
Sweet. Cheers, y'all.